Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Lopez versus Ortiz fight. If you're new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Lopez is 19-1 with 13 KOs and Ortiz is 17-1 with 8 KOs. This fight is for the WBO World Super Lightweight title. Lopez's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Taylor, and Ortiz's last fight was a win via unanimous decision versus Moran. Lopez's loss came via split decision versus Kambosos Jr. in 2021, and Ortiz's loss came via unanimous decision versus Lomachenko in 2022. So to speak a bit about what I've just said there, obviously this is for the WBO title. I believe it's Lopez's title. I believe he's defending it. I don't think he vacated it when the talks about him retiring were going about, but he's now back fighting, and in a fight which, to be fair, I didn't really expect. I don't think it would end up happening. I mean, when everybody was talking about Lopez retiring and only really looking now for the only biggest fights to actually get him back fighting, this wasn't quite what I had in mind, but I respect him for being willing to fight and now actually seemingly having this enjoyment back for boxing and this focus back for it, which I feel like mentality wise is the best thing for him. And so, like I say, it's nice to see. Obviously, he's coming off that very good performance versus Taylor, a fight which people going into it were possibly thinking his mindset was not in the right place. I mean, I was one of them people, and he proved me wrong. He kind of silenced any doubt, and he proved that he is still an amazing fighter. And coming off that Sandor Martin fight, before that, it was not his best performance, and to come and produce then a shutout victory versus Taylor was very impressive. And Ortiz last fight, very good performance against Moran, but obviously he's recently suffered a Lomachenko fight, well, relatively recently, a couple of years ago now, a year and a half ago, I suppose now, and Lopez, I mean, he suffered the Kambosos one not too long ago, but obviously they've both been able to kind of rebuild from them, and I mean, you probably said it, this Ortiz-wise is most definitely a step up in his opponent, and the last time he took this level of a step up, he did lose. So, you'd have to possibly think that experience-wise, it's in Lopez's favour. But to speak about them both as fighters, Lopez, he's, in my opinion, probably going into this fight seemingly with a bit of a more relaxed mindset. I mean, I know they've been going back and forth a bit online, but he seems a bit more back to his kind of confident self ways, which I do feel like to an extent is where you're going to see his best work. Obviously, I feel like some of the things he does when he is showboating and using that confident self isn't always amazing, but I feel like it is going to bring out the best in him, and it means he's going to have this kind of self confidence back in him, which, like I say, is only realistically going to be a good thing. But as a fighter, I mean, he's very fast. He's got a very fast hands, and he does move well. He's got power. I'd arguably say he's got better power out of the two fighters. He's got great athleticism, great ring IQ. I mean, the fact that he can do all this kind of showboating and stuff like that proves that the IQ is there to be able to do it and then not get hit in the process. It isn't something that everybody can do. Very highly skilled. He's patient. I think he showed a bit more of that patience in that fight versus Taylor. He didn't try and force the fight too much. He has that controlled pressure. He's explosive. He's got very good shot variation. He's consistent with his shots. He can push the pace. He doesn't necessarily always do it, but when he gets into a rhythm and when he can see weaknesses and when it's possibly even later on in the fight, he will push the pace a bit. He alternates stance well and does it smoothly. I mean, both fighters alternate stance, but I would probably say that Lopez does it the smoother out of the two. He's got very good footwork and he does let his hands go as well, and he's also got a solid chin. I mean, in the fight, if you remember, against Kambosos Jr., I mean, he was taking some quite big shots at times, and he did manage to do well against it to an extent. He negatives you'd probably have to say about him. I mean, sometimes he does take time to get going. He's not overly a very quick starter, but I would say the main thing is he really has to be up for the fight. And if he isn't up for the fight, then we don't necessarily see the best of performances from him. I mean, he's proven that in that Sandor Martin fight, he just really didn't seem mentally up for the fight. And if a fight like this, possibly, I don't know how much is going to motivate him this fight. And so, you know, I don't know what kind of version we're going to get of Tiafimo, and I feel like at times he can be a little bit inconsistent with, like I say, what type of version shows up. He can sometimes struggle a bit against physicality. I mean, fighters which are overly physical against him. But to be fair, in that last fight versus Taylor, Taylor early on was being quite physical, and it was to an extent damaging Lopez early on. But then he came back physical himself, Lopez, and then that's what kind of pulled him through into the later rounds where he was doing much better. He can also struggle a bit against southpaws at times. I mean, the fight versus Martin kind of proved that to an extent, and he can also struggle a little bit against taller fighters as well. Against like Nakatani, he proved that. But I feel like against both, I mean, I don't believe Ortiz is Iron M. I know Ortiz switches stance, so maybe he's going to be looking to be southpaw a bit, but I don't think that's going to play too much of a factor. Obviously, you can kind of say that overconfidence can be a thing going into the fight with Lopez. I mean, when he is being a bit confident and he is being a bit cocky, he does drop his guard a bit. I mean, his head movement at times when he wants it to be, it's amazing. But when he doesn't really, when he's being a little bit lazy defensive wise and is possibly showboating a bit, his head movement can slow down a little bit, or it can be the opposite and then it can speed up. But you know, it's sometimes his head movement isn't always as well as possibly it could be if he was a bit more disciplined. And he needs to keep his jab out, in my opinion. I think his jab is a very effective weapon, but he just, in my opinion, would I like to see him keep it out a little bit more at times. But to speak about Ortiz as a fighter, I mean, he's also got great athleticism as well. So I feel like in that aspect, it's going to be a great fight, and I think it's going to be a fight which is going to be entertaining throughout all the 12 rounds, as they can both prove, and they've both proven that they can go the full rounds, the full distance at a high level. He's strong, he can fight on the inside or the outside, similar to that of Lopez in that aspect. He's a stronger starter, which I feel like could damage Lopez if early on. He is willing to go straight onto the front foot. He lets his hands go. He's got good combinations, good conditioning, similar to what I mentioned, but the good combinations are definitely there. He can fight a physical fight if it needs to be. He uses his jab well, possibly better than that of Lopez at times, and possibly could keep a range a little bit. He does smother or rush his work, or well, he doesn't smother. I mean, or rush his work, and so you know that's something which is nice. Sometimes you could see Lopez rush his work a little bit at points. He does try and outwork. He's a switch hitter, like I said as well. He moves well as well, and he creates openings well. And so you know, there's definitely well-rounded skill aspects which both fighters have got, and you know that's what makes this fight a good fight. Negatives about him, I mean, you probably say he's not quite as sharp or quite as skilled as that of Lopez. On paper, Ortiz, he's got the less power, he is moving up in weight, and so I don't know if that's going to affect his speed or not. He can drop his hands a bit at times and probably do it a bit more than what Lopez does, and that's not him, even from him showboating, that's just him from coming from possibly inside to outside positions or from when he's switching stance. Like I say, I feel like he does it less smoother than that of Lopez. He can struggle against speed a bit at times. I mean, when Lomachenko upped his speed, which isn't stupidly fast, he did struggle against that at times and did struggle against the power of Lomachenko. And Lomachenko isn't known for being stupidly powerful either. And you probably have to say that Lopez is both, but better than Lomachenko in them two aspects. He can be a little bit surprised and be caught off guard a bit at times. The uppercuts in close open, and that's something which Lopez is known to do. He can be outworked himself a bit at times. Normally he likes to outwork, but he can be outworked in the process. He isn't amazing against a lot of pressure and resetting after, like I say, coming from that inside close position to being on that of the outside back foot kind of position, or even front foot outside position. That's when he does drop his hands, and he can get caught kind of watching and not really kind of forgetting the defense at times because he is just caught watching, and you know that means he is there to get hit, and he does get hit quite consistently. He has been kind of bruised up in fights as of recent, and he has been kind of beaten up in fights. In even when he's not even when he's not lost, he's still been damaged in fights. Lopez is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Lopez will win via unanimous decision. Like I said, I feel like this is going to be an entertaining 12-round fight. I feel like I said, both fighters have proven that they can go the full distance, and it's going to go the full distance in my opinion. I think Lopez, though, is going to be outdoing him into the later rounds, and I feel like he's going to be landing the shots and finding what works for him and finding the rhythm for him, and like I say, possibly working in close against Ortiz and then putting him under a lot of physical pressure. And I feel like if he can stamp that physical pressure, Lopez, then he's going to be able to find success from that and be able to win, like I say, via decision. I don't think he's going to be able to stop Ortiz. Then who we could go on to fight next? I mean, the main talks about him fighting Matias, which is I think a great fight and a fight which definitely should be happening. And there's talks about him fighting that in the summer, so it probably will be him next. If not, I mean, obviously Haney Garcia seems like it's going on the right tracks of actually happening. So the winner of that makes for a big fight versus Lopez, or even Prograis. Obviously, he's coming off quite a bad defeat versus Haney, but he's still obviously a top level fighter in the division, and so there's definitely big fights available for him, and that could be one of them. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did need, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.